Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Hero, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. This will be the final match of the season since I'm not high enough ranked to be part of the playoffs or anything like that. Going up against 1-1, I guess is the name. In any case, box is pretty mixed, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's got 4 healers, 2 tanks. It's more of a standard setup than anything else, which of course is pretty vulnerable in the meta nowadays. So I got rid of Wedem for the obvious reasons. My opponent did get rid of my Iron Blood Commander. For those who didn't watch the last week's episode or whatever, I did change one thing. I got rid of Sissy White and replaced her with Liana. Liana, since the games go so fast, and I tend to get player 2 very often for some reason, I really need an act again that's worthwhile. I also need somebody that can actually handle AoE besides Rosenseal, and Liana is kind of the best bet. Elma is another option, but Elma doesn't really have much else going for her besides the healing and reflecting. Liana at least gets me access to Gossipal and her 3C, as well as her act again that doesn't require any charge up for activating it. So I'm hoping that will give a little bit more option against opponents that do want to ban my Rosenseal first, and go from there. Having an act again as player 2 is generally an advantage, which I definitely need when I'm player 2, because giving up initiative to my opponent, who's also usually a rushdown box, is very, very painful. My opponent opened with Autocrado. Autocrado is usually annoying, but since I have Rosenseal, it's not really that big of a deal. So I was like, okay, you grab Autocrado. There was some variety, but I also I wasn't sure what my opponent was going for exactly, so I went ahead and got rid of their extra mobility and magic damage reduction, and got rid of one of the characters that can self-res, as well as has insane range. So they banned my my one tank and got rid of Helena. Grabbed Elwyn, not a big deal. Went ahead and got rid of their assassins at this point. So at this point, the only damage dealers they have left is Zerda and Iron Blood Commander, and then the rest is tanks, or 2 primary tanks. Autocrado can technically physical tank if you need him to. You usually don't use him for that, but he can if you need it in a pinch. But he can't, as far as I know, he can't block magic or guard against magic. So I went and guard Lucretia. Also, since I lost Iron Blood Commander, I needed somebody else that can do mass attack. Went after my Narm and my Kayura. They grabbed their Iron Blood Commander. At this point, I was like, alright, well, if you're not going to take tanks, I'll ban your tanks. So now I don't need to worry about assassins at all. I went ahead and grabbed Sherry. I usually, every time I grab her, I always mention that I don't really get very many opportunities to grab Sherry. And usually I don't grab her because I usually try to go Empire as much as possible, just to take advantage of Rosenseal. But I was like, if I have an if this is going to be just a pure rush down race, having someone that can act again on their own is pretty useful. She's not as useful compared to other boxes, simply because I don't have a faction buff for her. Rosenseal, they grabbed her for the healer, so I was like, okay. I went ahead and banned their act agains. So either they take Zerda, who's apparently demon. I didn't even realize that. Not often you see a demon Zerda, for obvious reasons, because of the holy vulnerability. And then the other option, of course, is TRS, which could potentially give them extra mobility and attack blessing. But against this box, I'm not that concerned about it. Went ahead and grabbed Pierotes. At this point, I was just grabbing kind of assassins that I was comfortable with using. I was tempted to grab, was it Serena? That's not her name. Just when I cut off the video. Silvaria, not Serena. Yeah, Silvaria, I mean, obviously she was kind of my go-to through most of these matches, but I changed it up a bit simply because I didn't really need to worry about it too much. Also, this group is pretty mobile and they're going to have initiative on me. So I was like, alright, well, they grabbed Zerda, grabbed Pierotes, and I went ahead and grabbed Alicia. No Subame. Alright. So Ellen can buff himself. I never really remember Autocrato's factions, but he has Empire, which means Rosensteel can actually buff everybody except for Zerida. Zerida did not bring her own faction buff, which is probably for the best against a rushdown box, because she needs so many turns to charge up. Ironblood Commander didn't bring Mass Attack. Obviously she doesn't need it. Rosensteel went 3C, as well as the and single target and then faction buff. Shrine Maidens, Elwyn, standard kit with unicorns. Autocrato, 3C provoke and shield bash, no guard. Not that I really. The only. Well, actually, I have two physical attackers that don't bypass guard, but he decided not to go with that. Went with zombies, which are generally pretty tanky, even against holy, and yeah, pretty standard stuff. Went Sherry with Griffin Knights, full attack. Lucretia, I dropped her Reaper for a mass attack. Standard Alicia with full attacks. Puritas, Quick Step, 3C, standard stuff. Rosensteel went ahead and brought her faction buff, even though right now she can only buff herself and Lucretia. Alright. So, opening with some high mobility here. At this point, Autocrato can go here, and if he happens to have the sword that increases the range, or increases AoE range, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so all the way to Sherry. Besides that, no one else can really reach me. Zerida's going to need a turn to charge up regardless because of 3C as well as hide and seek. And L1 can't reach me. L1 can reach all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm already at the border with Sherry. So main focus here was just to get up crystal barriers to deal with Autocrato's nonsense. So yeah, as you can see, she can faction buff everyone. It's actually a pretty good setup. Static Induction. So I guess that tells you a little bit about my opponent. The helmet that provides Static Induction is not very good. I want to say that's a SR helmet. I think that's an SR helmet. No, that's not. It's not an SR helmet. No, it's definitely not an SR helmet. It's an SSR. It's just not a good one. So it's possible my opponent's kind of just grabbing whatever they have. So yeah, with hide and seek plus the formation buff, she can reach me pretty much no matter what, as you can see here. So not much you can do about that, but that's okay. Lucretia can self-res, so I brought her up forward. Went ahead and did mass attack at this point. The disadvantage with Sherry is mass attack would only last 2 turns, so if I don't attack now, her second attack is always going to be without a buff, which is what it's going to look like. I definitely spent a lot of time trying to count steps to see if I can get Alicia close enough, but no way, I don't think it was possible. Maybe if I had pushed Sherry forward, I could have potentially done it with Alicia, but if I had pushed a single step forward, L1 would have attacked. So I had kind of no choice but to give up the initiative I didn't have to begin with. So Elwyn actually stays close right now, so he's actually vulnerable. And my opponent decided to open with Zerida first. So even without a faction buff, killing blow is more than enough to kill. But since they attacked with that, I was like, alright, well, you don't have guard. So I can do Righteous March from here and just kill your Elwyn. And since your L1 is near allies, he doesn't get the self-res. I could have probably attacked the other way and got a little bit out of that as well. So yeah, 3C does a little bit of damage, shuffles everyone. Not a big deal. Does steal some buffs, but that's... I still have my attack buff. He did move into defensive terrain, 30% defense. So I was able to shred hit most of his units, but I couldn't get kill. So I went ahead and used 3C just to heal myself back to full. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to get anywhere with this, so I went ahead and just moved in to use the second action to kill Zerida. So even without an attack buff, lightning was enough to kill. So yeah, Crystal Healing is going to heal up Autocrado, but it's also going to mean Resin Seal is not going to be moving from that spot for a while. So yeah, at this point it's 4-on-3. I will definitely lose at least one more character. Ironblood Commander can either go for Alicia or Sherry at this point, or I guess my pet, but that's not a good choice. And then that would make it 3-on-3, but I have more DPS, and Autocrado can't really do anything, to be honest, especially since the majority of my units are holy. So went ahead and moved in with Rose and Seal to potentially give another target. I don't really need the healing, and I just applied a faction buff to Lucretia. I think the smartest move would have been to probably kill Alicia, because obviously that will at least keep her close to everyone else. But yeah, but it looks like either Sherry or Rose and Seal here. Ends up going Sherry. I don't know if my opponent thought he can get away with this by being out of range, because technically he's out of range right now, but I have a puppet, and the puppet can swap places with me, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, just move down, shift positions. So I guess one thing to note, okay, so I have all those buffs. She does have the Empire faction buff, which will dispel one of my buffs when I attack. So yeah, unfortunately I can't go through the crystal barrier. And she does tank it pretty well. One thing to note about her, Ironblood Commander, is she's not usually Ironblood Commander is set up as holy, but this one's actually infantry, which means I didn't actually get the bonus for Impure Shockwave against holy units. So I was kind of stuck on options. I picked Impure Shockwave simply because it was slightly more damage than the Freeze Strike, but for the most part I didn't have any way of getting advantage here. It also didn't help that I lost my attack buff. Out of all the buffs, I ended up losing an attack buff, which means, of course, I did a lot less. It would have been close if I had kept my attack buff, but it's not the end of the world. So she does move in. Commander's Ferocity does get kill with a crit. I don't think the crit was necessary, but self-res, and then I was like, well, just in case, so I went ahead and took the extra steps that were provided just to stay out of Autocrado's range, because he does have a melee strike with the stun. Of course, I'm immune to the stun because of the crystal barriers. So just moved in, killed. So at this point, it's 3-on-3. Autocrado literally can't do anything, and then I'm just gonna take my time at this point. Get everyone topped off. Yeah, moves in with Shield Bash. So my self-res has been used, but there ain't much that can be done. I mean, the zombie troops were going up against... once you got through the sorceresses, you still had Holy class to deal with for the troops, and then Autocrado by himself just can't do enough damage. So yeah, pretty quick and easy match, just like majority of them in this season. And that is it. So with that, I'm floating around 56% win rate, which is usually what I float around. If I had the time, I would try to go for higher ranks, but it takes a while to kind of go through these. Part of the reason why the meta is kind of what it is because it's fast. Not only do you win fast, but you can lose fast. Usually with rushdowns, it's either you get the initiative and get the advantage, or you mess up and lose it. And it's usually in most cases it's easier and faster just to kind of go through the motions or just give up immediately and then just go to the next match instead of trying to drag yourself out of oblivion if things go wrong. I usually play all the matches as best as I can. The only times I usually give up immediately, well, actually, I usually do give up pretty early, to be honest. Sometimes I don't even go through the ban pick, mainly because I see some of the meta boxes and I'm just like, no, I can't do anything about it. That's kind of the stuff I kind of ran into for this season and last season. Was there certain boxes as well as certain bans that kind of screw me over. If they ban Rose and Seal immediately, I was really in a disadvantage. Losing Ironblood Commander can also be a bit iffy, but really the big thing is losing Rose and Seal. If I had more viable Empire characters, I would definitely try to throw them in here, but that would only goad my opponent to ban Rose and Seal more than not. So going with what I kind of have is probably for the best, because a lot of people will not ban Silvaria because she's usually seen as not great for some reason. At least what that was the initial view of her compared to Alicia. People are like, oh, Alicia's okay, and then Silvaria wasn't that great because it's weird setup and stuff she has. But even if your opponent knows your Silvaria has 10 range, it does provide a lot of pressure in an Overwatch. The only bad part about Silvaria is if you don't have initiative, you're kind of screwed in some cases, because your opponent will just outrange you and then just rush you and kind of ruin your day. But swapping Sissy White for Leona will hopefully fix that a little bit better, because if my opponent bans Rose and Seal, I'll at least have an Act Again. And Act Agains on as player 2 is actually an advantage because you don't give up initiative. But Sissy White is a good character, it's just not really good in my box anymore. She's exceptionally good in like a standard tank push box, especially a slower gameplay, because that gives her more time to build up all those currency to summon a bunch of mooks, as well as having kind of a variety of skills that you can spend the currency on. There's a lot of really good skills on Sissy White. The problem is you don't have enough space for all of them, and you have to pick and choose. And a lot of times, if she's your only healer, you kind of have to take some sort of healing, usually like area heal, or you have to take the one that gives her mobility at the cost of losing the ability to dispel. Which, if you go up against an AOE box, you're kind of screwed. You're kind of hurting at that point. The biggest disadvantage for Sissy White in this box is, since I almost always get player 2 for some reason, it means not only do I not have initiative, but in round 1, I don't have enough coins to actually do an Act Again. And you really need that Act Again in turn 1 if you're going to use it, because your opponent's going to be taking that turn to get set up. More than likely, if you're playing my box, your opponent's going to have longer legs than you, because that's just how it is, unfortunately. I will say that at least the imbalance between the male and female characters is kind of more stable now than it was before. In the past, you had almost no infantry troops to pick from, and your tank options were like just Freya for a very long time. So it's definitely balanced out a lot better than before. But unfortunately, there's also just a number of male characters that are just really hard to deal with, and our equivalents sometimes just don't match. That being said, overall, I'm pretty happy about this. I didn't really change up the box compared to the end of last season, which is when I introduced Silvaria, I believe. More than likely, we will be changing the box for next season. There'll be a character coming out. I can't remember her name. It's another. It's not. Is it Karura? Karuya, I think it was. It's one of those names that starts with a K and A, but it's from the I think it's Gintama, the Gintama collaboration. She's a Lancer that has exceptionally high attack power and actually has really good mobility. So I'm going to probably be swapping her in. I may end up dropping Alicia for her, and then following them, there is the character that has the portals. which would definitely give me a lot of good options in this box, because I do have a lot of characters that can act again on their own, either with chivalry or some sort of equivalent. And using that with the portals is actually really, really strong. So I'm hoping to try that out. Also, I'll be eventually swapping out Hilda for the next tank that comes out, which is a holy tank. And her thing is she has a faction buff that's purely for holy characters. Really, the big thing about her is she's a character that can actually be somewhat of an attacker, because she has skills like discipline, which is really good. And her gimmick is the fact that she can stack these buffs that are designed to be dispelled first. So it's a kind of like a counter against all the sword soul type characters that are been coming out. So I'm hoping to try her out. At this point, I don't have enough. I don't have enough reincarnation faction anymore to really justify using Hilda. And as you see in my box, I usually don't pick Hilda unless I'm given the opportunity to do so, which is usually like a turn 4 or 5 pick at best. So swapping her in would probably give me a little bit more options. Besides that, following that is the new Zerda character, who's really, really good as well. So gradually we'll be kind of filtering them in, which I guess our box will gradually get more meta as a result. But yeah, it's going to more likely be I swap out Alicia, Hilda, and probably Narm eventually. I may end up swapping out Zerda, just simply because her setup just takes too long. And that's kind of it. So yeah, it's going to be a little while. There's the upcoming banner right now is going to be Ricky and the other guy. I can never remember his name, but both of them are males, and as far as I know, they are not used for any bonds. So there'll be no summoning video for this upcoming banner, because I'm not going to be summoning either of them, and I'll just be saving up for the collab banner, which will be a lot of fun. So till then, I am the Depressed Dealer. This is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. I'll see you guys later.